Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast, where real students are doing real deals in the world of multifamily real estate. I'm Vince Gethings, the owner of the Wheelwell Profits Academy. Listen in as we dive into the journeys of driven individuals who are turning their dreams into reality. These people are just like you, taking action and making things happen. If you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, and if you're ready to take action, check us out at wheelwellprofits.com to learn more about our incredible community. Let's get started.
This is Movers and Shakers, where we interview the upcoming generation of Make It Happen multifamily investors to share their story.
Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake and Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, mentor, and I'm joined by my co-host, my brosif, Josh Rusin. Josh, how you doing today?
Gino, doing well, man. Making it happen at the highest level here. Very excited about what we got going on and some of the things in the future. Very excited. Actually, 2 weeks from now, we got a coaches retreat where we're bringing in the whole Jake and Gino team. We're going to do some masterminding, some culture building, and just making sure we're serving students at the highest level. Gino, what are you excited about?
A lot of things, Josh. I'm excited about the Jake and Gino community. We keep growing. We keep adding amazing students. As you know, one of the guests we have on today, he's been on Jake and Gino platform for a couple of years. Our students are continuing to close deals, even in this tough market, right? Because if you're buying right, there's still deals out there. You still have to work for those deals, but there's still deals out there. And just to continue doing these podcasts and just sharing our message with the listeners, that's what I'm really excited about.
You know, I like that. Speaking of students closing deals, I want to give a couple shout outs here. Isaac Chang with a huge cash out refi with proceeds of $750K after the deal. Braden Gasper also closed, was it a 60-something unit deal, Gino?
64.
64. And
mom and pop, Josh. Mom and pop deal, and it was off market, but he worked for it and he closed it. He got a great number for it. He went through the whole process with the due diligence. He knew how to underwrite the deal. He has the value add. So there's a lot of components to taking down a deal like that. And it's a long game, and he really worked his butt off, and he did a great job.
Yeah, and then a big shout out to my boy, Nick Amaluxon. So this is his third deal closed in just over a year with the community. He's got another one closing in December. Gino, do you remember how many units the deal he just closed was?
I know one of them he did in the 60 units also. So around there, he's got a couple hundred units also, right?
Yeah, he'll be at 200 units in the Austin area after this next deal. And then I know he's also got one in Atlanta with some community members as well.
And Josh, these are all deals that students are closing by themselves. We also have students like Kent Ritter, who's GPing on a 250 unit deal that he closed 3 weeks ago. So there's so many different ways to get into multifamily. You can help syndicate, raise money for a deal. You can syndicate a deal yourself. You can buy deals by yourself with partnering. So there's so many different ways to get into this business. You know, Josh always likes to say, you don't know what you don't know. It's time to find out what you don't know and use that knowledge to your advantage.
Love it. And speaking of closers, we also have a closer on today's podcast with us. So Lee actually closed on a deal October 18th, but a little bit more about Lee Fjord. So he's been a real estate professional and property manager, an agent for over 7 years. Now, 2.5 years ago, he moved from Florida to St. Louis to really accelerate his real estate investing career. After taking down some duplexes, single-family homes, and quads, he decided it was time to scale up. His most recent acquisition was a 38-unit apartment building on actually October 18th, so right before our live event. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Hi, guys. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Gino. I really, really appreciate the opportunity for you guys to have me on the show.
Yeah. So Lee, I want to go and retrace some of your journey. So let's take me back 8 years ago. What made you decide to get into property management, a real estate agent? Which one came first? Why do both? Unpack all of that for me.
So real estate is in my blood. I grew up with parents having rental properties. We sat around the dining room table talking about whether or not the rent got paid, whether or not a painter painted the interior of my house Pepto-Bismol pink or not. All of the ins and outs of owning rentals. We would have those discussions. We would go work on the properties on the weekends and do turnovers and clean them out. And I started learning when I was probably around 9 or 10 years old about real estate investing. Went to college, got a degree in finance. Skipped around a few jobs, and then an opportunity was given to me to be able to take over a small leasing department of a real estate brokerage in Destin, Florida. At the time, they had about 20 doors under management. I stepped in and over the course of about 4.5 years, grew that division from 20 doors to 220 doors while simultaneously selling a good amount of real estate at the same time.
What do you like about real estate?
Real estate it's a hard asset that I actually have control over. That's what I love about real estate. I can touch it. I can feel it. I can see it. I know where it is. I know, how much I paid for it and why. The stock market is wonderful for people who don't have the time or know, the ins and the outs of real estate, but all it takes is learning to know the difference.
What do you hate about real estate?
It's very easy to get bogged down in the little things and end up deciding that you're going to be the guy that goes out and does all the things that are needed at the property. Like I grew up doing, learning how to do plumbing, learning how to paint, learning how to install kitchen cabinets. All of those things I learned how to do, and am realizing now that you don't have to be the person that does that in order to be successful. In fact, you can be even more successful, probably 10 times more so, if you let the pros actually do what they do best.
So I grew up in the restaurant business, very similar to what you did. I grew up and I knew how to do everything. I was a really good cook. I could wash dishes. I could sweep the floor. And I had that mindset that you had. Unfortunately, I didn't stay in the real estate restaurant business. I rotated into real estate. So my mind shifted. For you, how has that been? Because I know when it's ingrained in you and you have your parents telling you, did you go collect the rent? Did you paint that? And that's not where the money is. I mean, it's really good, Lee, that you need to know those skill sets. You need to know that a contractor is not ripping you off. You need to know how to do certain things, because if you have to fill in, you can. You need to learn how to. But then what happens is the I'm a mentality, an entrepreneur can't let that go. And I know Josh knows that, because sometimes I want to take away a task from him and he's holding on, because when we first started, it was just me and Josh creating this beast. And now that we're getting a lot bigger, we have to focus on the tasks that generate the most revenue and achieve the most value. So for a real estate investor, unfortunately, it's not changing a toilet out. That's a $60 an hour job. You buying a 30-unit complex, you've created an acquisition fee, you've created equity. Which one is worth more? You underwriting deals, which one is worth more? You speaking to an investor that has $150,000, investment that can invest with you, what's worth more? How did you get out of that mindset that said, Dad, you know what? We're doing it wrong. I need to do it this way.
Honestly, I am every day fighting that challenge of wanting to go over there and swing hammers and spend my nights and weekends. And quite honestly, I've still been doing a decent amount of work over at my 38 unit, having closed only 4 weeks ago. But literally 2 nights ago, I was at the property until about 11 o'clock p.m. with all my tools. And I went to go push a cabinet into place and realized that there wasn't a drain line in the wall. When the guys demoed out the cabinets, they pulled the drain line with it. So I just stopped and said, you know what? I'm not going to be doing this anymore. I need to go find a deal. I need to be the guy that's running the show, not the guy swinging the hammer. So yeah, I packed up all my tools and told my property manager and the contractors that I'm going to be in charge of picking out the materials and project managing the big projects around the property. But I am better. My time is better used in order to source deals. And just in the last 48 hours since I packed up my tools and walked out of there at 11 o'clock p.m. on a Monday, I have already identified a 22-unit building that I toured, spoke to the broker. I'm expecting to get the numbers today. And if the numbers work correctly or well, we'll do due diligence and write an offer on that deal.
So I want everyone to stop and to think what Lee just said. Even if he doesn't get this 22-unit deal, he's made a contact with the broker. He's building rapport with the broker. He has a relationship. You can't create a relationship when you're on your hands and knees doing carpeting and there's nothing wrong with that. When we first start out, you have to do that. But as you start scaling up and as you start seeing that multifamily is a business, how do we create a business? How do we implement systems? Getting your first couple deals, you're going to have to get dirty like Lee did. We did also. But there comes a time and a shift in time when you're going to say to yourself, okay, I might have to give that up. And this is proof in the pudding. So I want everyone to really listen to his story because it happened to me also. You know, picture this. I'm in my shed at the restaurant. I remember this succinctly. It's July of 2015. I'm putting away the containers to go. I'm doing $12 an hour work. I've got my cell phone like this, and I'm talking to Jake, and I'm negotiating an $11 million no money down deal. And I said to myself, there's some insanity here. I'm doing $10 an hour work, and I'm potentially taking down a deal with Jake and another partner for $11 million with no money in our pocket that we got $140,000 at closing. So I made more money in that closing for, you know, taking money. So that was my shift. So I want everyone out there to think, what is your mind shift? What are you doing wrong right now that you can change, that you can start delegating time and really focusing on those generating steps that you need to do? Is it education? Is it going out and networking with a broker? What do you need to do? So I think that's really important. Lee, let's go back. When did we meet Jake and Gino? When did you join the Jake and Gino community?
I joined the Jake and Gino community in early 2016. So very, very early
One
on.
of the first.
I remember the first episode of the podcast where you guys announced that you were starting an academy, a training academy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure as soon as I listened to that episode, I picked up the phone and called you guys and said, hey, I'm in. Like, let's do this, whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And signed up. I utilized you guys for the first several weeks. And then, you know, it's been a great help to be a part of the Facebook group and connections. I wish I had utilized it more because I feel like I could have escalated my track record faster, but happily I met my coach at Multifamily Mastery Live and hired him this last week, Chris Jackson. He is a killer, super excited about that. And we're going to take my investing career to the next level.
So what would you tell people who are trying to get into multifamily? What would be a couple of steps or a couple of tips for you to tell them to get into it?
You know, whenever I meet young investors who haven't gotten started yet, I suggest they look within. Look at yourself in the mirror. What skills do you have? What do you have that you can bring to the table to bring value to a deal? Whether it's money or knowledge about construction or property management or, you know, any number of different tasks, marketing, anything that you can
raising
really bring
capital.
Raising capital is absolutely the linchpin to the entry into the next level of real estate. And then the next thing I would say is if you haven't done a deal yet, if you haven't done even a single family house, go and do it. It will start the snowball running down the hill or up the hill. Actually, for me, it was more like up the hill. So, you know, go pick one up, you know, go through the process of closing, go through the process of preparing a property for lease, go through the process of marketing a property for lease, know what it takes in order to qualify a tenant by doing it all yourself if you have to. And then at least you know the steps of the process. They're only going to learn so much by reading books and listening to podcasts. Eventually, you just got to put rubber to the road, go buy a house or a duplex or a 4-family or whatever you can get into without risking everything that you have, and go for it. And if you love it, you love it. And next thing you know, you're going to have, you know, 100 doors. Or maybe you decide this thing just isn't for you. And at least you made that choice or decision based on a small entry level property. That's a house, a duplex, or 4-family.
I love that. That's an empowering way to do it. And my partner over there loves to say there's 2 ways to do it. You can either pay to play or you can seek to serve. And I love what you did, Lee. You actually started out with a property management company. All the young guns out there, start out working for a property manager, start out working with a contractor, start out working for a mortgage broker, start out working for a real estate company, start out working for an education company like Jake and Gino. Whatever way you can get into it, you just seek to serve and you get out there and you get educated on it. I think education times action equals results is always the most important thing. You need to take massive action. But if you're not educated on it, like I was in my first or second deal, you're not going to get the results you want. So you can couple all those, surround yourself with like-minded people. That's really important. But really taking that step, I love the way you did it. You got in there. It wasn't fantasy, and even the construction aspect of it. If you didn't do your property management, you could probably jump on and help a property management company or a multifamily investor with boots on the ground, saying, "Hey, I can come in. I have a certain skill set that I can run your jobs for you." You get a little equity for that, and as you start growing, there's so many different ways of getting through. I love that. Do you mind if we dive into your 38-unit deal, how you found it, how you underwrote it, and what was really the value adds on the property?
Absolutely. So the property's in my backyard. I am the boots on the ground for my team. I joined up with a partner. He is an ex-NFL football player and firefighter out of California. Big shout out to Garrett. And we joined up, deciding that if we teamed up, we could go after larger properties, because I checked the empty boxes that he couldn't check, and he checked mine. So between the two of us, we could actually take down something a little bit bigger. Teamed up, took down a house to try out being in a relationship. That was a great little way to date. That was our dating process, where we took down a little house and fixed it up a little bit, or at least, we did, and got it rented. And it's a great little trial basis that went off without a hitch. So then we started hitting the market pretty hard. Brought in a broker to help us identify deals that were available not to unexperienced investors. So he's an agent out of Marcus and Millichap, and he just picked up the phone and called every single brokerage in town. So what do you got? I have guys that are ready to close. What do you have? So got linked up with a banker here in St. Louis that could put together the financing. Our goal was to be able to do a Freddie Mac small balance loan, so $1 million or higher, and buy a property that was 90% or more occupied, and all the rest of the boxes required to meet the needs for funding. Garrett and I filled, down payment, net worth, and experience requirement, which I filled because I've been a property manager for over 7 years. So you have to be able to check those boxes in order for the bank to even consider you. Once the bank considers you, then you can approach the brokers and say, "What do you got for me for deals?" Then put a 60 unit under contract. That fell apart. Wrote a couple LOIs on a few other places that never really came to fruition. And then finally I toured this 38 unit building here in St. Louis with this listing broker. Realized that it had a fantastic opportunity for value add, with simultaneously pretty low maintenance expenses considering the size of the property. It is 6 side by side, 1-story garden style townhouse apartments that are all 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, all ground floor, with a full basement built out underneath each building, and a 15 parking lot behind the building. We went back and forth on LOI for negotiations, finally landed at $1.3 million for a purchase price, with the seller providing a $55,000 credit to go towards deferred maintenance and closing costs. So the purchase price really was, for the seller, $1.245. For us, it was $1.3. And that money is going to help improve the property and pay for a large amount of the heavy lifting we're doing on the front end. In a gist, at current operating, it's over 90% occupied as of today. Average rents are about $460 a month. And we bought it at about a 7.75 cap, with approximately a 10% cash on cash return. But of course, that's not the goal. We have some heavy lifting to do over there as far as value add to the property. During the closing process, Freddie Mac essentially started adding on restrictions onto their loan requirements right in the middle of our financing contingency. So we had to scramble. We almost lost the deal because of that. But luckily, my banker put me in touch with, or us in touch with, a guy here local that could set us up with a bridge loan. Thank you, People's Bank. You guys are awesome. And Tony Meyer. We got the deal done at 80% loan to value. 5.25% interest, and it appraised out properly. We did all the surveys, and we did environmental study on the property, which they required, and we're able to get the deal closed just in time without having to add on any additional extensions.
Is this a recourse loan? So it's a community bank.
It is, yeah.
So you can actually refi out to a Freddie or an agency product, or maybe a private lender or whatever. That's the strategy.
That's the strategy. Yeah.
Josh and Lee, if you don't mind, just give me 1 minute. I want to deconstruct everything you've said there for the listeners, because the first thing is Lee took massive action, right? He went out, he toured a lot of properties. He's been in the market for a long time. He actually went out and he sought a partner. And Josh, I think it's funny that the last couple of podcasts, we're talking about dating and emotions, and we're bringing it back to like, that. So I thought it was really funny that, when you're getting with a partner, those value-based decision-making is really important. You have to be on the same page. The proof of concept is pretty cool. So Lee, what they actually did proof of concept to see if the relationship works, because a partnership is like being married to the person, because you're going to be sharing financials. You're going to probably be on weekly calls, if not bi-weekly, if not monthly, because all of our partnerships, Jake and I, we're all on weekly calls. It's important. Finding out the value, having the strategy in place, talking about making it happen where Freddie almost kills the deal and you continue getting those seller credits, being educated on knowing what money to take back, and knowing that there's a lot of work down the road. There's a lot of planning in place. So I congratulate you for that. That's a lot of work in place, but it didn't happen overnight, right? You're not an overnight success. You've been putting in the work for the last couple of years, correct?
Absolutely. I got the very first property I took down here in St. Louis was a duplex that I bought sight unseen for cash, and walked in the door with my sledgehammer and decided to do everything myself. Made all the mistakes, over improved the property, bought it for cash and repaired it with cash on my own time, hiring the wrong contractors, taking the low bid. But at the end of the day, it took me a year to do, and it worked out well in the end. It's stays continually occupied and shells off a couple $100 a month to me, and I was able to refi all my money out of that deal. So not a bad deal, but I know what not to do because of that deal.
That's awesome. Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors.
Gino, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. I know that you've been hard at work helping Jake and Gino students do just that using our framework. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
Guys, we've been hard at work growing our community of like-minded investors, and the results of our members has been nothing short of incredible. We're looking to grow this amazing group. What we're looking for is those who want to follow our proprietary framework that we've created: buy right, manage right, and finance right. Leverage our connections, education, and mentorship as ways to take your business to the next level.
So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become a part of our amazing community, apply to work with us at jakeandgino.com/apply.
Okay, Lee, I got some short answer questions here for you. So, all right, for the listeners, what's your best habit for success?
I practice time blocking. That is a huge part of my life. I schedule almost every single minute of the day, where I go through my calendar and my to-do list at the same time each day, and I take my highest and most important tasks, and I make sure that those are assigned an exact amount of time that I believe it'll take in order to do those tasks. And then I just work the schedule and I work the to-do list, and that's it.
Love it. What about your favorite book?
My favorite book, let's see. I mean, there are so many, obviously, but I have to take it back to Think and Grow Rich. It's been such an inspirational book for me. I try to reread it once a year. It changed my life.
All right, so I got to sum up some of the big nuggets and takeaways from this episode. We've absolutely killed it. So the first one is the value of your time. And guys, this was one I personally struggled with. I know growing up very middle class, I was taught, why would I hire something out when I could do it myself? But then when I realized my time is worth more per money or more dollars per hour, and I could sub that out and actually free up more time net positive on the end, that was super huge. The second one is going to be just do something, take action, get the ball rolling. The worst case scenario is you learn. And then Gino even touched on, you can either learn two ways: the school of hard knocks and the school of applied knowledge. One, you can try to figure it out and stumble along the way, or you can try to find someone who has the results you want, learn what they've done, and avoid some of that learning curve. Another big one is synergies and partners. So Lee, I mean, you actually crush it. So you brought the experience, your partner brought the balance sheet, you're the boots on the ground and the one making it happen out there, and you complemented each other. And another thing is you started small with a house. You tried out the partnership, made sure things worked, and then you scaled it up once you got that proof of concept. Gino, I know you're gonna have a ton more to add to it. What else was a big takeaway for you on this one?
Well, I just want to ask Lee a couple more questions and make one more observation that we didn't talk about. Lee moved from Florida to St. Louis to make it happen. I mean, that's a huge, amazing thing. So if you want to get into it and be boots on the ground and you're living somewhere where you can't have real estate and you're afraid to, invest out of your market, do what Lee did, do what I did. I moved from New York to Jacksonville area to actually invest in the market. And everyone's gonna say, I can't do that. I've got 6 children. I did it because I had a strong enough why. If you have clarity on how strong your why is, you'll figure out how to do it. Lee, what was your why? Why did you move from Florida to St. Louis to make that happen?
Financial freedom, to be able to have control of my own time. Within 3 years, I intend to solely focus on my real estate investing. And that's my why. I want to be able to travel the world with my family, my future family, and not have to be beholden to someone else. In the meantime, I will work as hard as humanly possible for the real estate developer who I work for. I get to work in my industry too, which is fantastic, and make and learn from him. But the goal is to be him when I grow up. As opposed to still be an employee.
And what I love about that, Lee, is you have goals that are actually achievable and they're not crazy. 3 years is a long time, but it really isn't a long time. People want to get this done within 12 months. You've already laid the groundwork. You've already been working on for a couple of years. So you sound as if you've got the 5-year plan, which is what I had. It's basically 5 years. If you start today, 5 years from now, if you take all these steps, you start learning, you start educating, you start taking on a mentor, you start getting into the business, you start taking down deals, you start networking, you start raising capital, within 5 years, anything's achievable. So I love the plan that you set out. And you're not focusing on just the goal of being financially free. You're actually doing the steps that you need to do. You're actually identifying, as James Clear says in his book, Atomic Habits, as a multifamily investor. You're doing deals. You're part of a community. You're actually underwriting these deals. You're doing the work. So that's really important. I think, Josh, the only other thing that I'd add on is really when everyone thinks about leverage, they only think about leveraging money. And anyone who's successful out there leverages people's time with employees. So if you're leveraging a contractor's time, if you're leveraging a broker's time, if you're leveraging an employee's time, you're getting 3 things done when you can only do one of them at a time. So that's so powerful. So using leverage for money and for time is something I think entrepreneurs can figure it out. And getting rid of that I'm a mentality is so hard to do because we've been I'm a mentality. And that's how our parents' generation was. It was okay. They could have made money back then doing that. It was a different economy. Now you cannot sustain a good life by just working, trading time for dollars. I think that's really important. There's so many nuggets, Josh, in this one. I mean,
Gino, I got to add to that. You unpack something very heavy there. I call it leveraging OPE, other people's everything. Now in school, when you copy the right answers, they call it cheating. In business, I call it smart, right? Instead of research and development, I call it rip off and duplicate. I'm the best copycat I know. If someone's doing something that's working, I would be silly not to implement that. Success leaves clues. Why reinvent the wheel? I think that's a huge point and one that so many could benefit from.
I like that. Hey, Lee, you have anything to add to that? Or I just see you shaking and agreeing with Josh. You're like, wow, rip off and duplicate. I like that. I like that, Josh.
Yeah. No, the only thing I can add is that I'm accelerating my portfolio. I am looking to add on additional properties as quickly as humanly possible and really scale this thing up. And I'm always open to having conversations with anyone, whether they're experienced or not. And I'm happy to have that conversation with them anytime.
That's awesome. You segued perfectly. How can listeners get a hold of you?
My phone number is 850-797-1307. And my email address is Lee, L-E-E, period, Fjord, it's F as in Frank, J as in John, O-R-D as in David, @gmail.com. It's, email me. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. It's, it's just a click of a mouse and you can get a hold of me.
Sounds great.
Guys, I want to thank Lee for being an amazing guest on the show and sharing his movers and shakers story. Now, if you want to be the next movers and shakers guest, email me, josh@jakeandgino.com. Now, if you like the show, please leave us a review. And until next time, let's make it a movers and shakers week. See ya, everybody.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.